Hey everyone, welcome. It's good to see you all. I feel like our rhythm, we have not established a rhythm yet based on weather and holidays and all kinds of excitement. I hope that you've gotten to spend some time playing in the snow and um, practicing your curiosity, your observations of yourself and others in the natural world and the snow. We're on page 31 in the journal today, so that you can take some notes if you choose to. When you come in, you can just get that out right away and turn to the page for today's class so that you're all set. Because you might want to write down things like this. The first extra credit movie will be happening on Monday evening. You can take notes. Princess Mononoke will be shown on Monday, February 2nd, and then it says room. This is where you can fill that part in. The room is 201 Thomas. 201 Thomas. And what happens is that you will meet learning coordinator Angelica there, and she will show the movie, and then you'll have a conversation after the movie related to BISCI themes. So Angelica has curated this movie list for us so that we can enhance the learning and connections that we're making in the room to what's happening outside of the room. So Monday, February 2nd in 201 Thomas at 7 p.m. So that is there for you as an offering. You will go watch the movie, do the conversation, and that gets you half a point of extra credit. And then if you want an additional half point extra credit, you can write a reflection, and those pages for the reflections are in the back of your journals in the appendix. There's a spot for each of the movies in the back. So you'll hand that into your TA with your journal the following week. For our centering today, coming to presence here in this space, in this moment, I invite you to reflect back on the question that was your discussion question last week. And you had the opportunity to discuss this, actually, to upload your video of what this is for you, and then also respond. So by creating a discussion with your lab mates around this. And so today I offer you, as our centering, the opportunity to think about water as a teacher. Water as a teacher, what water can teach us. The flow of water, considering that our bodies are a considerable amount of water, right? 70 to 72% water. So if we are made of water and we have that ability to flow, right? When water gets shaken up and then you watch it, it comes back to a settled state relatively quickly. So if water is our teacher, if water can be a teacher, if you open yourself to that opportunity, then considering that a lot of us are, we're constituted of water. So this can happen for us too in those moments of that we get unsettled for some reason, we get riled up. And then just as we wait, as we breathe, as we bring our attention to our bodies and our breath, we too can settle like the water does. So opening to the in-breath and exhaling out any distractions or tensions as we break out of the known. So today I want to first thing we're going to do is we have an opportunity. My friend named Mud is here to tell you about an opportunity that's available to you. So I'm going to pass it over to her. Yeah. You can hold it. Okay.
Hello. Well, my nature name is Mud. My given name is Jamie. And I'm here to just talk to you about an opportunity called Outdoor School. But backing up, who's heard of Shavers Creek before? Maybe with a raise of hands. Okay. And has anyone ever been to Shavers Creek? Well, lucky for you, if you've looked at your syllabus, looked ahead, you have a field trip there later this semester. So you'll all get to go, which is very exciting. But specifically, I'm here to talk about outdoor school. And as I talk, you can kind of just like click through the slides just to kind of give like a visual representation of what I'm talking about. But outdoor school, if you haven't heard of it, is a program for fifth grade students from Mifflin and Huntington County, and they come and stay at camp with us. It's a residential camp. Has anyone ever been to like sleepaway camp, either as a kid or as a counselor, like staff member, anything like that? Nice. So you can kind of like picture that in your head, walking on trails, campfires, kind of eating all together, kind of that experience. And the reason I'm talking to you about it is these fifth grade students, they come, they get to learn about their forest ecosystem as well as themselves. It's a big learning opportunity for them. They're 10 or 11. So this might be the first time they are staying away from home. And so a lot of times they leave outdoor school like standing up a little bit taller because they've just really accomplished something like pretty big for themselves. And this is what fifth graders look like, in case you've forgotten. And I'm talking to you all about it because we go around to classes and we recruit Penn State students to be camp counselors. And so you would come actually and stay with us at outdoor school for a week. You would arrive on a Monday, and we have like a full training day, just the staff. And then the campers get there Tuesday morning and leave Friday afternoon. And so throughout the week, you get to be in your teaching team. It's kind of like your trail group. So it's like 10 to 12 kids, a couple counselors, and then an educator. So you're not responsible for teaching the whole week. You're kind of more so this facilitator. So you're helping to manage the group. You do get the opportunity to teach, which is really great. And you also stay in the cabins with the kids, just so you're aware of that, but you're with someone else. You're not doing anything by yourself ever. If you are interested in this opportunity, you can earn 2 general health and wellness credits. And I know you need 3 to graduate, as well as some community service hours. It's also just a really great way to like, one, get away from campus for a week, and just like be outside. That's something I enjoyed about it as a student personally. And it also just kind of shows on a resume or something that you kind of like took some skills that you've learned and you went out and applied them. There's so many great opportunities to take advantage of as a Penn State student. And this is kind of like one choice that you can make to kind of take advantage of a really cool opportunity. Yeah, are there any like quick questions people have that I could answer that are coming up for anyone? Or maybe a raise of hands, anyone who's done this before? Nice. Cool. There is typically a lot of crossover. A lot of people that are in BISI end up also doing outdoor school because there's kind of similar messages, I would say. And if you skip ahead to there's like a you don't know what it looks like, but if you skip ahead to kind of the more logistics piece of it, I think it's in one more, two more. One more. There we go. So the logistical piece is you would apply to be a counselor, and there are 4 weeks, and you can kind of select like which one you'd be available for. And then there are a couple training dates that you come to. You just get selected for 1 week, so it's not like you're missing a whole month of class. And I'd also like to just mention it is a university excused absence, and your professors should be willing to work with you in order to make it happen if you're interested. And on the next slide, our email is listed as well as the application deadline, which is next Friday. There's also flyers up here if you want one of those. So feel free to like spread the word to people or reach out if you have questions. And thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Sorry about the snaps. You're so welcome.
Yeah. Hey. So these flyers are up front here if anybody would like to pick one up after class. I'll also send out an announcement on Canvas so that you have all of this information and able to check out the website. Thank you, Mud. So opportunities for creating your own story, at Penn State through the choices that you make. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about story. Did I set my clicker behind me? Great, thanks. So today, whoops, here we go. So we're going to start with this reflection question. The idea of story, right? I just said this, you get to create your own story by making choices at Penn State. So story, you'll get to hear this word a lot through the TAs, and I will often use the word story. And so I'd like you to look at this equation, right? A way of seeing becomes a belief, becomes a truth, and that becomes our story, right? So an example of one is my middle son, Henry, will sometimes say, Luke made me angry. That's his little brother. Luke made me angry. Well, can Luke make you angry? Like maybe something that Luke did has you feeling irritated inside, but Luke can't do anything to make you angry, right? That's a story. You are choosing to react in a way, you're choosing anger at whatever Luke is doing. How about the story, I don't have time for breakfast, right? That also is a story. We all have the same amount of time every morning, and it's just that you're choosing to not use your time to eat breakfast. So how is it that then that becomes, that's your truth all of a sudden, that I don't have time to eat breakfast? Well, you do have time. It's just that you chose to use your time a different way. So your story, I have to do my homework. Well, you don't have to. That's a story. You choose to do your homework because you don't want to see what the consequences are if you don't do your homework. So these stories that we create, these beliefs that we carry inside of us, shape the way we move through the world, shape the way that we interact with ourselves and with other people and the world around us. The sidewalks experiment is one of these. It creates a story. If we feel like we are too shy to say hello, and that's my belief, I'm too shy, then it's not going to change. My story is not going to change. And so stories are really important. So take a moment and sort of process this idea with your neighbor a little bit, the idea of stories and beliefs. See what, if anything good comes up in your conversation. So what would, any other examples of story or anything that came up for you in your conversation that anybody would like to share? I don't know where the microphone is right now. Great. Hi, Hannah. Thank you.
I kind of said like stories like shape us to be the people that we are just because like the experiences we go through, no matter if they're like good or bad, kind of all lead us to like have a story, and then it kind of makes us like maybe feel a different way about something or like act a certain way. So
Yeah. So those stories add up, right, over the course of our lifetime. Thank you for that. Yeah. Anyone else? So today I'm going to be doing my best to smush together Monday's class and today's class. And the class for Monday was origins, thinking about the origins, our origins, the earth origins. And so we have some stories that you may have grown up with a story around origins, right? So thinking about this one, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, the Genesis creation story of both Christianity and Judaism. And this might be your story, or maybe you grew up with a different creation, beginning of time, beginning of humans kind of story. And this story may have shaped how you grew up. It might shape still how you move through the world today, right? Because these stories are very powerful. Creation myths, myth being another word for story. In Wikipedia, it says there are over 100 distinct ancient stories of how the world came to be. So I find it interesting to consider these origin stories and then how they relate to our lives now. Joan Chittister is a Benedictine nun. She's a native Pennsylvanian. She got her PhD at Penn State. She's been the co-chair for the Global Peace Initiative for Women. The story goes that she was making a choice at age 16 whether to become a nun. And she was listening to a speaker that was talking about God, and she asked, "How do you know that God exists? How do you prove it?" And the answer came back, "Belief is always a choice. You can't prove that it's true, and you can't prove that it's not true, because believing is a choice." And so if you carry this story, you have the choice of how you're going to move forward with it, of whatever your beginning of the world story is. There's also this story. The universe that we see is the vast tip of the cosmic iceberg, right? Hundreds of billions of galaxies contained in our universe, each of them home to billions of stars and planets and moon and all of the visible light and all the other energies, the radio waves and the gamma rays and all of that. Everything we have seen with our telescopes is about 5% of what's out there. So there's, along with the normal matter, there's also dark matter, which can't be seen, but it's pulling. It has this gravitational effect. So it pulls the galaxies together. And so there's all of this stuff going on in the universe. And they say that part of this story is that this happened 14 billion years ago. The supernova, the death of stars that birthed Earth, huge ball of hydrogen gas that then just exploded, right? It's compressing, fusing hydrogen atoms into helium, which then releases an enormous amount of heat and light, this huge fusion reactor. So that happens in large stars, and that's what happened. That's how Earth came to be, as some people believe that that's true. Stars have a finite life, right? So when all the hydrogen is gone, then some whimper away and some do this big bang kind of thing. So it was 10 billion years after this big bang that our Earth came into being, as all of those particles bonded together. The idea that bonding is at the heart of the cosmos, the Big Bang, and then we have all these different steps, right? A few 100 million years First galaxies and stars form a few billion years. Expansion of the universe begins. 9 billion years, the formation of the solar system. 10 billion years, life on Earth begins. And then here we are at 13.7 billion years, on our way to the 20 billion when our sun will become a red giant, and then see what happens in the next cycle. So the idea that all of what we know came from this process. So the Big Bang, Big Bang, the effects of this, the results of this are in you. They're in you. That water that I talked about at the beginning, that 70-something%, all of the hydrogen that was formed ever in our universe is ever in our planet, I should say, is in you. The hydrogen formed in that initial Big Bang, the hydrogen was only created then. So hydrogen in a glass of water, as you know, H2O. Some of you acknowledge that in your speaking pieces. H2O, hydrogen, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. So you might be 20 years old or 30 years old or 40, whatever your age is. And yet the stuff of you is more like 14 billion years old, right? The stuff that makes us up is in there and has been part of you since the beginning of the universe. It's been all different kinds of cycles over the course of that time. So we're going to watch this quick video. Can you just click? Yeah, thank you.
You can share with the most astounding fact, is the knowledge that the atoms that comprise life on Earth, the atoms that make up the human body, are traceable to the crucibles that cooked light elements into heaviness in their core under extreme temperatures and pressures. These stars, the high mass ones among them, went unstable in their later years. They collapsed and then exploded, scattering their enriched guts across the galaxy. Guts made of carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and all the fundamental ingredients of life itself. These ingredients become part of gas clouds that condense, collapse, form the next generation of solar systems, stars with orbiting planets. And those planets now have the ingredients for life itself. So when I look up at the night sky, and I know that, yes, we are part of this universe, we are in this universe, but perhaps more important than both of those facts is that the universe is in us. When I reflect on that fact, I look up. Many people feel small because they're small and the universe is big, but I feel big because my atoms came from those stars.
So the idea that we get to choose what we do with that information is really interesting, right? We have the power of choice. The power of choice. Every day we face thousands of different choices. So many small ones that we don't even think about it. We've got 4 doors to come into. Which one are you going to come into the room? You choose and you come in. But you chose. That's the point. You chose what you did eat today or what you drank today. You chose how you moved through campus, how you encountered other people on the sidewalk on campus. So we choose these small things. We choose big things about relationships that we want to engage in. We choose things about our majors or how we want to proceed with our lives in those big pathways. We choose how to engage with challenging people in our lives. So let's use the example of being at the grocery store. So you have this list of things that you want. on the list, right? Maybe it's the things that you know that you should eat, right? I should get some salad, I should get some carrots, I should, whatever's on your list. And then you walk into the grocery store, which now the average grocery store carries between 30 and 40,000 unique items. And so you walk in there and then suddenly you're faced with all these other options, right? So you have your list and yet there are the Pop-Tarts. Like, I just saw that there are now chocolate mint Pop-Tarts. What the heck? The number of Pop-Tart choices alone is rather staggering. So how do you choose, right? And if I'm choosing for me, that's one thing. If I'm choosing what my children are going to eat, that's a different thing. Like, maybe you're trying to account for, like, what am I going to choose that my roommate's not going to eat, right? So how do we face those choices? You walk in there, and what happens actually inside our brains is pretty fascinating. So we've got different parts of our brain that are lighting up there as we walk into the grocery store. And we need to complete the action of shopping, but how are we going to go about it? Like, how are we going to move through the store? How are we going to get to the things that we want? How are we going to compare prices? All of this stuff that our brain is doing for us, ultimately leading to what you're going to take to the checkout counter. So there are two different regions of our brain, particularly different brain regions within the prefrontal cortex up here in the front. So there's one part that determines the overall value. So if I buy this 2-pound bag of carrots, like, that's going to be a lot of good snacks for a lot of good days, right? It's taking in the value. Okay, if I'm going to buy this bag of cheese puffs and I'm going to eat them while I sit and watch the movie, I eat the whole bag, that's not going to be quite the nutritional intake, and yet it's going to be really fun probably. So the brain is discerning between those choices. So there's overall value, which is risk versus reward. And then also another part of your brain that determines how you ultimately behave. So you're going to try to prevent bad things or loss, and you're going to try to promote the good things. So then in that, like, how much money are you willing to spend? How much time do you have to spend in the store? How many calories do you need or want to consume? And what kind of calories? So all of this stuff is going on in our minds as we are actively making choices. This guy, Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the Holocaust, he said this in an epic book that he wrote, 1946 psychological memoir called Man's Search for Meaning. He says, between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So the idea that choice is really powerful. If we see all the places that we have in our lives to make choices about things that we do, instead of just moving through our world like, this is the way I always walk, these are the people I always go out with, this is how I always do this. Like, those are all places where you can make choice and have power and be conscious about those choices, right? So everything can be taken from a man but the one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstance, to choose one's own way, is another quote from Viktor Frankl. So I'd like to introduce this concept, the idea of decide versus choose. So when you look at those two words, as you may have already picked up on, I really like words. So when you look at the two words, decide has similar word structure to the words homicide, suicide, pesticide, herbicide. That CIDE means to cut off. So an herbicide is what you use to kill weeds. Right? So decide means that you're cutting off options. So it's a very brain-centered process. So when you're deciding about something, you often maybe think about a pros and cons list and you go, oh, this option has more pros, so I'm going to go with that. Okay, that's how I decided on college. Wasn't the best option, wasn't the best. It didn't incorporate a lot of other things for me that were really important. So the idea that choose, decide is all analytical mind, but choose incorporates a different way of being. Choose is a want, a preference, a desire. Choose comes from a more grounded place in our body that's often related to passions, to gut feelings, to an inner wisdom. The word choose actually comes, the root word is to taste or to relish, right? So choosing, the word shares its ancestry with gusto, meaning to do with zest and vigor, right? So it's like an enthusiasm around the thing that you are choosing. So often we decide because we're going to go with what we know. I decided to walk this way. I decided to eat this food. I decided because those are the things that we know. That's the comfortable place. Thinking back a couple classes ago to the hero's journey, entering into the unknown is often where we encounter the choosing, right? Something that feels a little bit sketchy inside somewhere, something that feels like, ooh, this could be a little bit challenging, or this would put me out of my comfort zone. And so choosing to get up early, right, so I can eat breakfast, choosing to choose my beliefs, not just take the ones that were handed to me from my parents, choosing the friends that I feel like I mesh with in a really sweet way, not just the people that I happen to live next door to. So how is it that we move through the world with choices? It's actually not that simple. Our brains aren't trustworthy alone. We have to sometimes make these choice or decision based on too little information. Sometimes none of the options meet the criteria. And so we carry all that dualism stuff that we talked about before, all these preconceived notions of superior and inferior. So what happens when we can't rely just on our brains to make the choices is that we have all this other equipment that I've just alluded to. This is where my big aha came when I first started hanging out in this class, is that I was taught to decide. My dad is a very good decider. I love my dad very much. He's very much a pros and cons list kind of guy. He's an accountant. He's very regimented. And so that's how I was taught. I grew up as an extraordinary decider. But as far as choosing, it's really interesting when we start to incorporate these other parts of our body. So we have this second brain in our gut, right? Down here that exists. Enteric nervous system lining the gut contains 100 million neurons, which is more than the spinal cord or the peripheral nervous system. So when you hear people say, well, go with your gut, or you have a gut reaction, that means that something is happening that's not coming from your brain, but you have a reaction that's telling you something. Your intuition is down here. And so it relies on the same kinds of neurons and neurotransmitters as the other nervous systems in our bodies, and they are just as accurate or just as important to balance out the way that we make choices. In addition to this way cool system, the enteric nervous system, it is connected to the rest of our body through this, our vagus nerve that extends. Vagus means wandering in Latin. So it's the only cranial nerve to extend behind the head, and it connects into our throat next to our voice box here. It goes to our lungs, our heart, and then all kinds of internal organs down here. And so the important thing about the vagus nerve is that when we are when we're in tune with it, when we're paying attention to it, it brings together all these parts that we have that help us to make choices. It helps us to figure out what we really need in the moment if we can tune in. So this might be a tool that might be useful for you in a lot of different areas of your life. So paying attention to what's happening. So when you are feeling something in your heart, you have an option, a choice, a decision to make, and you feel your heart racing, it makes you a little bit nervous to think about the options. What's that telling you? It tells you that your vagus nerve is speaking, right? Or you get that feeling, somebody walks into the room and your stomach kind of flips. I feel like there's a good kind of flip, like, ooh, that seems like an interesting person to get to know. Or, oh, I think that person feels a little bit like I should go the other way. So you can pay attention to what's happening in all these areas of your brain and understand that it's your vagus nerve that's sending you messages. And if you listen, it's probably going to be a good thing. It's going to help you choose. So this is an inner alchemy. This is an inner kind of knowing that you have the power to access. A lot of our culture, we move through our days in decision mode. But if we open up to these possibilities of choosing, using our whole body, we have the capacity to know things. This is useful when we need to have a correct answer. If you're working on a test and you need to know something, there is a place for brain work. And then the idea that you feel, right? This is your heart center. This is useful when you want to express yourself or when you want to pursue the unknown. You get that certain sense of curiosity. This is your native self talking, right? The feeling of love, moving forward. And then you also intuit. So this is your gut. This is your gut talking to you. Instinct, past experience, that's your nervous system response. And this is helpful most when you don't have all the information. You can pull together all of these pieces to help you choose moving forward. So we can practice. There are ways that you can practice stimulating the vagus nerve, okay? So I'd like you to think about your favorite song, okay? Either lyrics, no lyrics, doesn't matter. All right, and on the count of 3, I want you to sing or hum your favorite song, okay? On your mark, or no, it's 1, 2, 3. Sweet. So now, whether you chose to hum or whether you chose to laugh at me humming, both of those things triggered your vagus nerve. So we can do this by splashing cold water on our face. We can do this, Morgan recommends a cold compress on the back of their neck, and that is helpful. And you can also sing or hum. You can give somebody a big hug, like a really big, sincere hug is a good way to trigger, to get your vagus nerve online. Right? All of these things are like whole body responses and that help us to be fully who we are. So the idea that how we handle stress in these choice moments really matters. So I struggle with my gut. You'll hear about it, unfortunately, over the course of the semester, but it's a really interesting teaching tool. I have a lot of foods that I can't eat. And every time I have had a high stress point in my life is when I have, so in college, I really struggled as a science major. I was uncomfortable. It's not what I was made to be in the world. And 3 lab sciences in a semester, and I was stressed out. And suddenly I couldn't eat milk or any milk products. I couldn't drink milk. And so my body started shutting down, right? So stress, because I wasn't paying attention to all of my parts. I knew that it was hard. I knew that I had to keep going, except I really didn't. And then things get stressed out, and systems don't work as well. So then every time that I have experienced high stress times in my life, now I can't eat wheat, and now I can't eat beans, and now I can't eat eggs, and now I can't eat, like, the impact of what's the stress that I carry in my mind affects what's happening in my gut. Likewise, what's happening in our guts impacts what's going on in our mind. So if things are unbalanced down here, if you're somebody who gets nervous before tests, or you get anxious about something that is throwing your gut off a little bit, then that can influence what's happening in our heads. Stanford neurobiologist Robert Sapolsky says that chronic stress does lousy things to people's brains. We make ridiculous, stupid decisions at times of stress. Judgment, impulse control, and emotional regulation go out of whack during these times of stress because of the effect on the frontal cortex. And recent findings show that when we are stressed, we become less empathetic, less compassionate, less capable of seeing someone else's perspective. We know that it's really good for people to get stress under control because there will be fewer cases of hypertension or diabetes. But ultimately, Sapolsky says, an important reason to get individual stress under control is that people will be nicer to one another. So if we connect with ourselves, then we also then do a better job of connecting with other people. So this question, do you think that this class will be a good way to spend your time? Do you hope that this class will be a good way to spend your time? Do you choose that this class will be a good way to spend your time? What's the difference? Talk to your partner about that. Is there anybody who would like to speak to this? What's the difference in these three words? Maybe somebody we haven't heard from yet?
So we said that think is something that you believe or something that goes on in your brain. Hope is more of like something that you want to happen. And then choose is something that you're willing to do or something that you make, kind of. So that was our difference.
Mm-hmm. Sweet. Thank you. Anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, so I said choose because like this class is what you make of it. I mean, you can be physically present, but it's really up to you whether or not you want to engage.
Yeah. So if you put think in the question, do you think that this class will be a good way to spend your time? Then that might be based on things that you heard from other students, or it might be things that people have shared with you, or your impression. Hope. Do you hope that this class will be? That puts a lot of pressure on me. If you're just hoping that I'm going to make this worthwhile, that's a lot of pressure and not really fair, actually, on me or your TAs. And then, but if you're going to choose, right? If you're going to choose that this is a good way to spend your time, then that's the onus then is on you, right? That means that you're going to be embodied, you're going to be here, you're going to be present, you're going to be engaged. And so choosing And this is true. I use this example just because we're in this class, but you can use this for most anything that you do. I'm going to choose to be part of this club, and that means I'm going to be fully in, and that's exciting. So it changes how we show up. You know, the difference in these words just change how we show up to a place. And choosing is empowering. Choosing is the hero's journey, right? The hero doesn't show up and they're like, well, yeah, I guess I'll jump into this situation. Like the movie wouldn't be very compelling if the hero was like, I don't know, maybe, yeah, kinda, right? So it's a matter of being fully present, of being fully who you are, of being engaged. And so choosing is powerful. These are the BISI pillars of, our culture. And so that goes into the choosing as well. This isn't just about BISI, right? It's about how are you showing up in your life overall. With great power comes great responsibility. And as humans, we have this great power of choice. It's the operating system of our lives. It's how we move around in the world. Our beliefs, our stories that we carry more than anything else determine our lives and our destinies. And the fact that we get to choose those things is pretty cool, pretty powerful. So if you think back and tie this to our dualism class the other day, choosing can relate to this as well. You have this unlimited inner power to figure these things out, to wrestle with these concepts. And that's for you to figure out what's right for you over the course of time. We have a choice then to change from dualism, from moving from either or to both and understanding that destiny is not a matter of chance, it's a matter of choice. Destiny is not a thing to be waited for, says William Jennings Bryan. So you might want to jot this down and just reflect on that for yourself. Because as we come to each day, this was on the banner. I took my son to visit Juniata College, and this was on the banner on every light post. Think about who you are. Who is that person that you want to be? What would happen if you chose to eat breakfast? What if you choose to decline an invitation to go out with friends because that's not really what you want to do anyway? What might happen for you if you choose to put your phone away while you're walking around campus? What if you choose to show up to your life with your full being, right? Choice is power and responsibility, and we are our choices. So going back to the beginning, what you choose to believe about your origin profoundly affects your understanding of who you are and why you are here. So this week, your discussion post question will be posted right after class. Are you in control of your life, or is life happening to you? Why do you answer the way you do, and how do you feel about this? Thank you very much. I hope you have a beautiful day. Hey, it's so fun. Do it. Yeah. It looks really good. It's really good. Yeah. The outdoor school flyers are up here if anybody wants one.